Well, we're just about at the second round of the playoffs, which also means we're just days away from the 2024 OHL Priority Selection. That's going to take place on Friday. And you haven't seen the video yet I did with Jordan Millette. He breaks down the top talent to watch for in the draft that's coming up. And if you're a fan of the Sarnia Sting, you'll be able to see who could be there at number two. As this Sting team, I feel like they've got a great foundation in place. And I wanted to go over the season that was and looking forward to next year. As I think this team has a solid foundation in place, and I'll kind of explain why here. The Windsor Spitfires, they did win the draft lottery 2 weeks ago, getting that number one pick. But for the Sarnia Sting, it was a big day for them as well. They had the fourth best odds of landing that pick, and they ended up moving into the second overall position, which is fantastic for Sarnia. Considering the season they had, we kind of knew that this team is going to fall off a bit going into 23-24. They weren't really expected to make the playoffs, but boy, oh boy, did they make things interesting in the Western Conference. They even got off to a great start in the preseason. They had a record of 4-1, and then they were winning games at the start of the year. They were exceeding expectations, and then started to slip as the season progressed. But they didn't fall off the face of the earth. This team stayed in it right up until about the second last week of the regular season when they had that road trip through Northern Ontario. And that's when we realized that Sarnia wouldn't make the postseason. But they challenged the Flint Firebirds right up until the end of the year, which if you're a Sarnia Sting fan, you have to be pretty happy about seeing this young team be so competitive after what they went through last year. And of course, the Sting, they went all the way to the Western Conference Final in the 2023 playoffs. And that was the first time in franchise history that this organization has had that deep of a playoff run. So I think with this team and the way it's been building, there's been a bit of a culture shift with this team. It kind of reminds me of the Peterborough Petes and the direction this team is heading. And I think this is fantastic. I would love to see Sarnia make it to an OHL final and try and get that first title since moving to the city of Sarnia. And this Sting team, I think they're gonna be a team that's gonna challenge, I think, as early as next season. So let's look at the top scorers from this past season. And it stands out, Marko Sikic, he led the team in scoring with 57 points. He had 18 goals, 39 assists, so he was fantastic. He was a great playmaker this year for this young Sting team. Then you have Tyson Doucette, another great talent on Sarnia. He had 23 goals, 23 assists, good for 46 points. And then Zach Filak, third in scoring during the regular season, 24 goals, 16 assists, good for 40 points. Easton Wainwright, he was hurt at the start of the season, so it took him a little bit to get going. But once he was back in the lineup for the Sarnia Sting, he was putting out the points. 13 goals, 24 assists, 37 points. Lukasz Fischer, 6 goals, 28 assists, 34 points. Good for the defenseman. And I really was impressed with Fischer's play. He's going to be a standout defenseman going forward with Sarnia and as his career progresses. Then you also have Mitch Young, 11 goals, 19 assists, good for 30 points. Cooper Way, the captain, he had a pretty good year too. 11 goals, 18 assists, good for 29 points. Kai Schwint, what a pickup he was. He was the overager on this team. He returned to the OHL late. He was at the National Hockey League, and then the Mississauga Steelheads ended up trading him to Sarnia, and I think he was a great fit with this team. He had that veteran leadership, and I think a player like him really guided some of the young players on this team to finish off the season. And for Kai Schwint, 13 goals, 10 assists, good for 23 points. I know he ended the season hurt, which is really too bad. You don't want to see an overager miss the end of the season because of injury, but Kai Schwint meant so much to this team and even got to be the head coach momentarily in a game against the Saginaw Spirit when Chris Letang was ejected for, I think it was abuse of official. I think he's still got a suspension that's lingering into next season. So Kai Schwint, the overager, and also part-time coach. I guess we can put that on his resume. Ninth in scoring, Carter Kostic. He's a rookie forward. They picked him up from the North Bay Battalion in that big trade at the deadline. Kostic, 11 goals, 11 assists, good for 22 points. He is going to be fun to follow next season. I'm expecting him to take a big leap offensively with the Sarnia Sting. Of course, they acquired him from North Bay in the trade for Sandusville Manis and the LeBlanc twins, who ended up going to North Bay. And then 10th in scoring, another rookie, Ryan Brown, 11 goals, 9 assists, 20 points. Not too bad for a rookie season. So those were your top 10 scorers. Obviously, you notice there the point totals really not that high. Sarnia having some issues with the goal scoring, but still, they were a very competitive bunch right down to the wire and bit of a feisty team at times as well. So I really like the foundation of the Sarnia Sting team going forward. They learned a lot this season from playing important games down the stretch. And even though on the goaltending front, Nick Szerzejka, he had a record of 16, 28, 2, and 1. His goals against 3.98, and then his save percentage 875. His save percentage there, not too shabby on a team that ended up missing the playoffs. And then you've got rookie goaltender Carson Chartier, a 7-11 and 1 record, a goals against 4.55, save percentage of 846. Expect that number to improve even as early as next season. Szerzejka, of course, he played the bulk of the games, but he's the kind of goaltender that I think he could play almost every game. I'm sure that it's probably good to manage that time maybe a little more next year, and we saw that with the Kingston Frontenacs with Mason Vicari. I almost feel like Kingston played him a little too much going into the postseason. So Szerzejka, a guy that can play at the time, but maybe managing that playing time might be a little more ideal for next season if this team's going to make the playoffs. Looking at this team, I really like what general manager Dylan Sika is doing. He's really trying to create a new culture, and we saw that last year. It's like I said, very similar to the Peterborough Petes, and that run to the Western Conference Final was fantastic. Although the trade deadline last year was pretty costly, when you give up guys like Porter Martone and Angus McDonnell, who flourished this season in Mississauga, but they did pick up great talent. They got Luca Del Bel Belluz and Ethan Del Mastro, who were solid pickups and really helped this team in that playoff push. But it has given hope to this fan base who they've been just yearning for a deep run for quite some time. And now that they've got a taste of it, they want to go again. So I think for what Sika is doing, he's really setting this foundation really well for the Sarnia Sting going forward. And I don't know if we'll see a sell-off like that again in the future. I saw an article posted at the end of the postseason about Sika saying that they probably wouldn't do a trade like that again, trading away such great young talent for a couple of rentals. But when you're in that position, though, and you know you got a team that could go all the way, that seems to be the trend in the Ontario Hockey League. If you can be a buyer, you go big. And we're seeing that with some teams that are in the playoffs right now. But I do like what this team's trying to do. They want to have a winning culture. They want to create that. And when you've got the likes of the Sioux Greyhounds and the Saginaw Spirit battling it out in that West Division, why not Sarnia? Sarnia should be a team that, teams should be a little more cautious about playing against. You can't take any team lightly in the Ontario Hockey League. And when you've got the Sting building for the future, I really do like what's going on here with the Sting. But they do have a couple of graduating OAs this year, including Cooper Way, Marco Sikic, who led the team in scoring, and then, of course, Kai Schwint. He'll be moving on. So those are some big positions to fill, but I think their OA candidates are also pretty strong. They do have to make some tough decisions. Some of the overage candidates for next year include Zach Filak, Tyson Doucette, Owen McDonald, and Nick Szerzejka. I'm pretty sure we can expect Szerzejka to stay in Sarnia next season as one of the overagers, but man, that's going to be a tough decision. Filak, Doucette, or McDonald. This team's got some tough decisions to make going into next year. And I also like the fact that they're going to be having that second overall pick. It could be Ethan Belches, it could be Adam Valentini, Brady Wasselin. All three of those great candidates for this team going forward. Obviously, it all depends on who the Windsor Spitfires pick. It sounds like the first overall pick for Windsor will be Ethan Belchetz, so that would leave probably Valentini would be my guess as to who gets picked second overall, but I don't have any inside knowledge with what's going on with the scouts and general managers in this league, but that's where I would probably be leaning towards. Maybe Adam Valentini ending up in Sarnia, and that'd be a huge pickup for this team going forward. So the Sarnia Sting, yes, they missed the playoffs, but I think there is a lot of positives with this team going forward, and they should be in the mix for playoff positioning as early as next season. So I'd love to see your comments. What are your thoughts on Sarnia going forward? Who do you think they pick second overall in the OHL draft on Friday? Love to see the interactions. Thank you very much for all your support. And if you haven't subscribed yet, well, may I encourage you to subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and we've been seeing some great growth over the postseason with the channel, and I think everyone who has already subscribed as we continue to move through the postseason and recap how some seasons went and look forward to next year. So, again, thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.